Happy day, sisters. Welcome to Come Sis With Me, the podcast, a movement fueled by the heart of women with a desire to experience genuine community that uplifts, empowers, and strengthens one another on one common hood, sisterhood. I'm your host, Mia, relationship counselor, coach, minister, and your sisterhood connoisseur. Join me as we walk through my honest conversations on all things sisterhood, womanhood, and whatever other hood comes up, with the goal of knowing that through it all, you got this, sis. Hey guys, welcome back to Come Sis With Me, the podcast. I'm your host, Mia, and we are fresh off of the month of April, which was Stress Awareness Month and Diversity Awareness Month. I think there was something else in there, but we are also off of a refreshing week of infertility awareness for you to either tell your story, give support to someone who is going through infertility, or, find out more resources to help you in your own personal journey. And I love April for that week's time. I actually feel like this year was the best year that I've had in a very long time with celebrating and bringing support to infertility. But I'm not going to lie, I'm tired. I'm tired, and it did bring up a bunch of emotions that I thought, I don't know, that I just wasn't expecting this year. And so now we're in May. And this month is mental health awareness. And although I plan out my podcast episodes very early in advance, I did not even put together that the episodes for this month were going to be just seamless with what I am feeling coming off of this last month. So if you haven't already, noticed, we are going to be talking about mental health, but specifically, I wanted to talk about grief. Why? Well, I'm just coming off of a week full of, talking with women and going and sharing my own grief in the process of infertility. And I don't know, it's wild to me how there's so many different facets to grief. And so it was a perfect time for me to talk about it, my own infertility, and then the journey of others and the grief that comes with that. There was a recent loss in the WAG community, the wives and girlfriends of professional athletes. Term is WAG. But she was a pretty prominent member of this group of women, this lifestyle that I live. And she died unexpectedly, very shockingly to people. And it brought up emotions of two things that I've experienced since becoming a WAG, which was the loss of a very dear friend suddenly to a brain aneurysm a couple years back, and then the loss of a really good friendship that I thought was going to be forever, and it turned out to not be. So yeah, that was part of the reason why we're going to dig into grief. And then the third one is just simply because women just grieve differently than men. And I thought, what better, we should talk about it. And we should acknowledge it, that we are quite different than men. We grieve differently. And sometimes some of the resources that we have for grief aren't necessarily supportive to us as women, as a whole. And I thought it was important that we just discuss it. Grief is any conflicting feelings that you have that has been caused by the end or the change in a familiar process or patterns of behavior or experiences. So death, divorce, loss of a job, change in financial status, moves, anything essentially that causes a lack or a loss and changes what you are familiar with as in a pattern. It could be the death of a physical person or the death of a relationship. But either way, any changes like that have the propensity to evoke grief. And so how women typically deal with grief versus men, because I brought that up as why I wanted to talk about it, is we like to tell the story. We like to feel our way through the grief. We like to seek support and correction or connection, not correction, connection, but we probably should seek correction sometimes. And then we like to like create a memorial, right? A remembrance point. And I'll just run through those really quick because I wrote down something in my notes about telling our story. So women who grieve might tell their story over and over again to help process their feelings. And this can help them come to terms with what they've been feeling, understand their emotions, and feel heard and supported. And so if we recognize that women, as women, when we're grieving, we like to tell our stories over and over again, we will hopefully be more inclined to listen than to rush someone through what they're actually going through, because we then can say, oh, they're probably grieving. They're not just upset or venting or trying to gossip. Like they're going through something. The other thing I said was tell their way through it. So, or feel their way through it. Feel their way means that women tend to share their emotions with friends and loved ones to feel their way through the grief. Like we literally are telling you how we feel, not so you can give an alternate perspective of or say, you shouldn't feel like that. You should feel like this. But just allowing someone to go through the process of telling you what they feel so that it can assist them with understanding their emotions. And then that can lead to a deepening understanding of their perspective, their own perspective. And maybe even yours, right? Your perspective on something. That's really important. The other one was seek support and connection. Rather than focusing on fixing it or problem solving, most women grievers look for support as they gain perspective and understanding in working through their grief. The way women typically approach might be reaching out to a support group or a counselor to share their thoughts and feelings. This is important because if you see a woman who isn't doing this, right, give her that, supply that for her, or encourage her to push towards a counselor. I just wanted to give you some ideas of how women grieve differently than men. Men don't talk about their feelings. They're not seeking support and connection a lot of times. They're just like, it is what it is. I'll deal with it. Remembrance. The female model of grieving could be focused on remembrance of the loved one and possibly a deeper feeling of guilt when attempting to move on. I wrote this one down last because this is so true for me. I don't know about you. I have tattoos all over my body. And before I turned 21, I was quote unquote engaged. I don't like to say I was officially engaged because I was 21. Can you be officially anything at 21? Well, not in my life. I was just so unserious, okay? But we loved each other. We were so in love. And at least what I thought love was. And his name was Lenny, and he was killed in Atlanta 4 days before my 21st birthday. And I found out about it 4 days after my 21st birthday. But I say that because I felt so guilty over his death that I went and got a tattoo that commemorated him on my back. It literally said KC's Finest because he was from Kansas City, Missouri. And I got a big old tattoo on the, what do we call it? The tramp stamp area of your back. But it wasn't a little tiny one. It was like this big. This big, right? And so I think it was maybe the 4th year into Scooty and I's relationship that I realized after he's seen it like several times, he was just like, I see that tattoo. But I realized like about 4 years in, I probably didn't get that covered up. I don't think my husband, or at the time, my future husband, was going to want to see that for the rest of our life together, our lives together. I put like a whole memorial on this of this man on my back. Even though what we shared was very pivotal for me and my thoughts about men and also my relationships. Yeah, big old tattoo was just crazy. That was outrageous. Anyhow. So that is how we experience grief. And a lot of times it is vastly different than what men experience. And so as women, it's good for us to understand that. It's good for us to know that about one another. My experiences with grief have shaped a lot of what I believe about myself and even my relationships with other people. And so I just want to talk about and share some of these things. My experiences with grief is that grief is unexpected and unscheduled. It cares very little about who you are and what you have going on. Exclamation point. I can be in the middle of cooking and think about Courtney and break down. Um, Let me just tell you a little bit about Courtney. Okay, Courtney Claber was a wife that I met 2 years. I met her the first year overseas in my husband's career, and we became really close the second year of his career. And she died in our third year. And Courtney was just an amazing woman. From day one, she was so inviting and opening, and we just really connected because her heart was just so pure. She was very honest and open about the things that she struggled with in her marriage, things that she struggled with in friendships, things she struggled with in her own life, just her own womanhood, things that she struggled with in her career. But it was so bold and sharing like the triumphs too. And I just loved talking with her about the things that I struggled with in those first couple of years. Her and her husband and her family lived in Maryland and we lived in Delaware. We weren't far from each other at all. And I remember the summer after our second contract season, I went down to visit. Well, we went down to visit her and we had an amazing time. We barbecued, really had fun. But I had no idea that it was going to be the last time that I ever saw her face to face. And that really jolted me when I heard about her death. But sheesh, guys. That's why I said grief is unexpected. You think like I've literally walked through this to write out the notes for this podcast, but you just never know when it's going to hit you. Especially because Courtney's legacy is so great. And so the reality is that she was a great friend. Her legacy lives on. And one of the ways that I have attempted to kind of let her leave her mark on me and my life is to make sure that I remember her often. And, when I think about our time together, when I think about our lives together, let me pause for a moment. I gotta get myself together. Okay. So what I was saying was that at any given time, I can be cooking or I can be thinking about something and Courtney will come up. And I'm just shocked because the way that Courtney died was very unexpected. It was an extreme loss that I can't say we don't still feel today. And so that has been one of my experiences with grief. Another one is that it does not go away with time. It's a lie. I don't know who told us this lie, but it does not go with time, obviously, because I'm still crying as if Courtney's death was yesterday, and it was in 2017, 16, our third year. Oh my gosh, I'm not good with math. But it doesn't go away with time. It may lessen in severity. I will give it that. Or maybe even a better way to put it is that it is your life, you learn how to navigate with this new experience. So it becomes a new normal. You don't necessarily become numb to it, but it's a new normal. You learn how to navigate life through it. Because I still come across old pictures of Courtney and mourn. I come across pictures of uh, a friendship that I had that was very dear to me, and mourn. Uh, not 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 to say like, oh, I want to, be friends again, right? But the reality is that we were amazingly close. I have so many great memories with this woman, and now that is not the case. And yes, this is my new normal. So I have to navigate life in a different way without her. Um, So, grief can cause us to look and act different in a good and a bad way. What I mean by that is grief can cause a flood of transmitters and hormones to become disrupted. This is literally a scientific thing. Like, disrupts the normal balance in neurotransmitters in your brain, and after that, and affects the way that your brain actually functions, right? Think about um how at times infertility, because of the grief that I have experienced in that day or even over the past week, can cause disruptions in my sleep pattern. Like, literally not being able to go to sleep or stay asleep the length of time that I normally do. I recently had something take place where it was just really hard for me not to think about it. And it made me really sad. And so I would wake up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, like literally clockwork, because it literally disrupts the way that my brain typically functions, which at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I should be asleep. Okay. Or I want to be asleep. So I'm typically asleep, and that caused a fluctuation in my sleep pattern. So this is what I say, like, it can cause us to act and look different, because if you don't sleep, you're gonna look definitely different. And this could be good in bad ways, but that disturbance typically affects how I manage my days. Not just sleep, but any type of disruption in my normal day-to-day functioning, brain functioning, right? Well, it'll 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 have a bearing on how I navigate my day. So think about your coworker, right, who comes to work and she's typically really genki, really happy. Genki is like good, happy in Japanese. Genki desu ka? Think genki desu. Genki. This is turning into like I could teach you guys a little bit of Japanese. I don't really know that much Japanese. I mean, I know enough. I'm just not great and proficient in teaching it, um but think about a woman who comes, or a sister who comes to you or comes around you, that's typically happy, okay, like very mellow, and all of a sudden she's crazy, right? To you. She's just irrational, erratic, kind of looks like a little anxious, nervous. That could be a sign that she's grieving, that she's going through something. And it's the reason why many of us can't get through our days or manage our typical day to day responsibilities. I have learned how to lean in to my rest days. It actually has changed my entire way of formatting my weeks, because I used to really like pride myself on being as productive as possible. But as I have learned that my life, as I have experienced more things that can evoke grief, and then recognize how grief kind of can come up unexpectedly and change the way that I sleep, my sleep pattern sometimes, or just leave me extremely exhausted where I need a day on the couch. I've learned how to navigate it better, and not be so quick to judge myself when I need those times of rest. because I can look and behave one way and be completely different the next, depending on how grief has showed up. This is what I've personally experienced with grief. Now, I said a little bit earlier, the reasons why we grieve can be all over the board, right? From death to that typically being the most extreme form of grieving, but it can also be losing a job or losing an opportunity for a job, because that still can evoke grief. And a lot of times we call those that form of grief like a disenfranchised grief because we don't acknowledge it, but we should, because grief is grief is grief is grief. Okay, sis? And the way that it makes one person feel may not be how it makes the next person feel, but it's still grief. And why we struggle, I mean, one of the reasons why I think that we struggle is because we actually don't view death or the ending of anything or even the change or the transition of anything well. I don't think we were taught it well in society, and I really don't think we have been taught it well in church. One of the best books that I've ever read in my entire life is Emotionally Healthy Leadership by Pete Scazzera. Uncle Pete is what I like to call him. Him and his wife, Aunt Jerry, have literally, in my mind, coined the term healthy in leadership because their books and their discipleship courses and their relationship courses and their spirituality courses have some deep, are filled, overrun with nuggets that help you tackle things like this. That we don't look at endings as an opportunity for us to embrace something new. We look at endings as failures, lack, loss, I mean, you name it. And so we've been taught that death isn't or shouldn't be necessary in order for something new to begin, right? That death is just simply the ending of something, and it's really sad because we never want things to end, which that actually is really sad when we don't want things to end because it does rob us of the ability for something new to take place. We in theology, we really have not taught this well because we bring more attention to the resurrection that took place, which is absolutely important. I mean, it is the cornerstone to our faith is that the resurrection took place. But we like to like glaze over and skip over the whole death part, right? That Jesus actually had to die in order for resurrection to take place. That's hard for us because death hurts. It's scary. It's we don't can't explain it well. We don't give good language to it. We don't like the way it makes us feel uncomfortable. And one of the things that Uncle Pete says is to bear long-term fruit for Christ, we need to recognize that some things must die so something new can grow. For non-believers, you can think about it like this. For people who aren't Christians, let me not say non-believers because maybe you believe something different, but for people who are not Christ believers, this would be equivalent to the thought process of you bringing home fruit from the grocery store and it rots, right? And instead of you throwing it out because it's disgusting at this point, like it's dead, it's gone, there's nothing else that you could do for it, it's not serving any purpose anymore, you keep it in like this cute little bowl that you have on your little thing, and you allow it to occupy space that could be used for new fresh fruit, right? And I don't know about you, but if I have fruit that sits around too long, I get flies, I get stinky, nasty like residue. Oh, I hate that. I literally hate cleaning that part up too. It's the worst thing ever. So I tend to throw out fruit well before it rots.
I'm wasteful, I feel like, in that way. And that's why I don't buy a lot of fruit unless I'm going to eat it that day. This is a little personal thought. But it would be equivalent to that. We don't like to throw things away because we think it's a waste, right? And so we don't get rid of it. But what happens, we allow it to take up space that could be there for something else. We dread endings. We struggle because we dread endings. We dread things ending. Why? Because most of the time it's uncomfortable to end things. I mean, there's like hard conversations, honest conversations that have to take place in order for things to end. But we also see things ending as a failure. I said it earlier. We don't like to feel failure. We don't like things to end because that typically brings pain. We like to avoid pain at all costs. Just going to avoid it and maybe it won't happen. Being honest with ourselves about feelings and being honest with ourselves about what is not feeding us, right? Rotten fruit doesn't feed us. And so I thought about my own personal experiences and why I have dreaded endings in the past. And it's because there's a couple things that are required, that have been required of me in order for things to really like end like they were supposed to. Um, I've had to realistically, I've had to be honest with myself about feelings and doubts that I've had. And I've had to be real with God about disappointments. In our journey with infertility, I have I've talked about this in previous episodes. I've shared that my husband and I, we will be married for 9 years in June, and we have been trying for a baby since we got married. And over the last 8 years, 8.5 years of our marriage, we have welcomed, celebrated, prayed for, fasted on behalf of couples who have received their babies, their promises. There has been a multitude of babies that have been born in our 8.5 years together. And I have had to be real with God about my disappointments over them receiving babies and me not receiving a baby, um, physical baby in that way, which has led to me being okay with ending certain things in my life, right? Certain ideas, like letting go of certain ideas. I think one of the things that I shared with you was that grief is not necessarily a death, but it can also be the lack of something, right? Not receiving something can evoke grief. And that's exactly what has taken place. And even the thought of something not happening can be likened to the reason why we struggle in not wanting to see something end. The acceptance of something not taking place already, not saying that it won't ever happen, okay? But accepting that it has not taken place yet has caused grief. And I've had to learn how to release that feeling and that emotion and that doubt by sharing my disappointments with God, by telling Him, I am not happy with you. You are the giver of life and you have not given life. I've had to have some real conversations about what that feels like, what that looks like, even though I know He knows these things, right? Like maybe you don't know from this point of view. And so I'm telling you. And that has allowed me to relinquish some space that was really heavy. I've had to be real about my anger at my previous friend and how I was angry about the way that she ended our relationship, and not hold it against her or anyone else. I've had to say that had to go. Like it had to end, right? Maybe it didn't need to end the way it did, but it had to end, and it's okay. It has no bearing on her. It has no bearing on me, on who we are as women.
who we are as wives, who we are as sisters. It has no bearing on that. And I've also had to learn how to relinquish my sadness over the death of a multitude of people, but specifically over Courtney, and how that has affected me. And that it's okay that I grieve every once in a while when I'm standing at the kitchen cooking a certain thing, because one of the things that we did often was share recipes with one another. It was actually really important for us because we got so bored cooking the same thing every single day. So I've had to be real with my feelings about my sadness. And for some of us, this is why we struggle, because we're not honest with our disappointments. We're not honest about the anger that we have. We're not honest about the sadness that is taking a toll on our day to day. And it has been allowed to disturb how we are, how we act, how we respond. Okay. I think I need a break. My jaws are like. If you enjoyed this episode of Come Sis With Me, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the extraordinary power of women in the bond of sisterhood. Until then, you got this, sis.